Andrea, there's a Nathan King
Yeah.
in the
Okay,
waiting.
he's one of the presenters.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. We are here at the Kingston City Hall, Common Council Caucus, Democrats, all but one who will not be able to make it, Paul Frankel. And we call this meeting to order at 7:03 on 9/11. That being a very significant day, I would like for us all to take one moment and stop signing and to offer a moment of silence in memory of those who perished on this day 21 years ago, right? 22 years ago, and all of those who suffered in the aftermath. Thank you. All right. So I understand our first order of business is the presentation.
Yes, I'll have Steve do the honors of introducing.
Sure. This was brought to my, I'll give a disclaimer first. This is nothing but an informational session tonight. We're not going to be voting or anything else on this tonight. This was brought to my attention by one of my constituents. I thought it would be some good information that we could look at. I don't want to do the presentation, so I'm going to start getting into details that I probably don't know anything about, but we have Nathan King here who will be doing the presentation, and he'll fill us in on the company is called It's Electric, and dare I date myself by saying I remember a song by that title a while ago, and
I remember screaming when I was a child and I put my finger in the socket. I remember dancing. It's Electric. Yeah, about that. So anyway, Nathan, take it away.
Hi, it's fantastic meeting you all. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share more. I hope you can both hear me and see my screen. Is that the case?
We see you, but if you want to show something that's on your screen, we need to have the clerk provide the passageway.
Can you make Nathan a co-host, please?
He's all set.
All right, Nathan, so you should be able to screen share.
Excellent, thank you.
There we go, we see it. As long as it's a 3/4 circle that looks like a guitar.
Oh, I like the guitar. Actually, that's a good, I hadn't seen that one yet, but I like it. It's Electric was started in response to actually a personal problem that I had. It was during the pandemic, and I live in a fairly dense neighborhood in Brooklyn. I hadn't owned a car in the 23 years that I'd lived in Brooklyn. Nice. And I had a 5-year-old and wanted to get a car for lots of different reasons. And, you know, I'm a very much ecologically oriented. I recycle, I compost, I do what I can to reduce my carbon emissions. And of course, I wanted to get an electric vehicle. But when I started researching where I would be able to plug it in, you know, I don't have a driveway like, you know, the many tens of thousands of people who live around me. I live in an apartment. I found that the closest public charger was about a mile away. And so for us as a family to, you know, deal with the logistics of driving the car to the charger, plugging it in, walking back home, and then walking back to where the charger was and the car was parked. It made getting an electric vehicle out of the question. And as I started to dig into this problem, I realized that I wasn't alone. Everybody that either was thinking about getting a car or had a car, who didn't have a driveway, wanted to get an electric vehicle, but they too did not know where they would charge the car, and realized that actually this problem could also be an opportunity. And digging into it, we realized that that this is something that has been understood for a long time, but so far nobody has really done anything about it. There aren't any companies out there trying to solve this problem of putting chargers into cities. It's really been an afterthought. And the priority for getting people chargers has been along throughways to kind of solve this problem around range anxiety, or drivers that do have their own driveway or garage are able to get their own charger and plug in. But people who live in cities they weren't considered part of this problem. And we know now that as this industry around electric vehicles matures, that we're going to need to solve the problem, and we're going to need to solve it very quickly. By the way, this is not just a big city, dense city problem. More sort of biographical detail about me. I grew up actually in Syracuse, New York, and I grew up in the city of Syracuse, such as it is. I generally lived in 2 and 3 family homes. And the way that it worked is my family usually rented one of the top floors, and the landlords lived on the bottom floor. And we always parked our cars on the street. We see this kind of problem of street parked cars, not just in places like Crown Heights, Brooklyn, where I'm sitting, but actually even in cities like Kingston, across the Hudson area. Really any city in the US that has kind of a dense urban core has a cohort of drivers that park their cars in the street. And I think what's ironic about it is those cities actually probably would benefit very much from having publicly accessible chargers because they tend to put more miles on their car for their daily commute than people who live in denser cities. So the solution to the problem for us really quickly was, well, we need to bring chargers to where people are already parking their car. We can't ask or expect people to drive their vehicles and plug in and then drive back home on a regular basis. It's just not sustainable if we want this to work. So what we are developing is a network of curbside chargers. These are chargers that are deployed on city streets, on the sidewalk, to charge drivers that don't have off-street parking. This is a model, by the way, that is very much underway in the EU and the UK. There are many companies, actually, there's tens of thousands of curbside chargers deployed in places like Germany and France, and especially in the UK. So they have kind of a head start on us on this. In this country, we have maybe a total of 1,000 EV chargers on the curbside total. So we have a long way to go. And one of the reasons why it's taken so long to deploy chargers in this country is, well, of course, it's very expensive. It takes time to work in cities. And we had the revelation that if we could make the installation of the charger go faster and cost less, then we would be able to get more chargers in the ground faster. And we could start to contribute to solving this problem of what we call access anxiety. It's not range anxiety, it's access anxiety. It's people knowing they have a charger near where they live. And the solution to the problem was one that kind of came to us one day, which was there's power everywhere in cities, and in the form of electricity. And EVs are fueled. Their power is electricity. So really anywhere you go in a city, you can plug in your car and charge. But the problem is that you typically have to tap into a utility main, which is very costly, and it takes a long time to permit. In some cases, in many cases, the utility is already at the capacity and they can't attach new load to it. But power, as I said before, sort of exists everywhere. It's in the buildings that we live in. And so our curbside chargers, which are publicly available to everyone in the community, find their power in the adjacent privately owned property. And that's what we do. We pull that power out to the curbside, and we skip the whole process of having to deal with the utility. And because of the high utilization rates that we see with curbside chargings, the ones that have been installed, it's easy enough for us to make the investment back to actually do this installation at no cost to the property owner, and no cost to the city. So we're a privately owned solution solving a public infrastructure problem using existing spare capacity in the infrastructure that's already been installed. And you might ask, well, why would a property owner let us do this? Well, we actually will share revenue from the charger. So 20% of the top line revenue from our charger goes back to the property owner. It's a way to lease that spare capacity that they have on their electrical panel. And by the way, we're talking about appliance level of power here. These are not chargers that you might see on the throughways like a Tesla supercharger. These are level 2 chargers. They take as much power as an electric dryer or an electric range. So there's not a huge demand on the building or the grid itself. And it's powerful enough to charge a battery fully overnight. And so our drivers are typically people that are going to live next to one of these chargers. They plug in, they're able to charge their battery overnight. And they can actually share that spot with multiple drivers on their block because most drivers won't need to charge their battery every night of the week. We also looked very carefully at the design. We are a community and driven design EV charging company. We're thinking about how our chargers need to integrate into city streets. This is because we don't think that homes and businesses want to see things in front of their property that look like gas pumps. So what we have developed is a curbside charging bollard. As you can see in these images, it's very sleek, it's minimalist, it's durable, and it features a detachable charging cord. This is actually quite important for a number of reasons. First of all, it keeps the charger footprint small. The cord goes with the driver, it fits in a nicely designed tote, and it stays in the car when it's not being used. And when the driver pulls up to the charger, one end goes into the car, one end goes into the post. When you're done charging, you reverse that operation. The reason that it keeps the post small is we don't need to add devices or armatures to the post to keep the cords up off of the ground when it's not being used. There's no retractable mechanism that can fail. And so what it allows us to do is keep the footprint of the post itself down to 7 inches by 7 inches. The other reason that it's important is because charging cords are the #1 thing that break on a publicly accessible charger. We've talked to municipalities and property owners that replace their chargers 2 or 3 times a year. Drivers will sometimes just sort of drop, my co-founder calls it a mic drop. They just sort of mic drop the charger. Road salt gets into the contacts and corrodes it. People vandalize the cords thinking that they are worth money because of the copper. For us, a broken cord is not a broken charger. The next driver that comes along, they can use the cord, or they can use the charger because they have their own cord. And we can replace the driver's broken cord with a new one fairly quickly. This is how charging is done in the EU and the UK. Most public chargers in the EU and the UK feature this detachable cord, and we're all operating on the same sort of standard. So it's an interoperable cord. It's not, it's electric proprietary. There are other companies that are now getting into the market around this detachable cord in the United States. We are so far the first, and we will be the only ones with a fully certified product. But some of the companies in the EU and the UK are trying to break into the market as well. That's good for us, though, because the more of these companies that are actually competing with us, the more drivers will get our cords and have access to our chargers as well. I'm just cognizant of time. I'm just going to skip to some of the highlights. Because we're able to keep the charging costs to a minimum, we can charge in just a couple of days. We've proven this out with some of our deployments here in Brooklyn. It's really no different than a suburban driver installing a level 2 charger in their driveway or garage. This is something that has already happened tens of thousands of times across the country. We do have the additional complexity of dealing with the sidewalk, but it really is not that complex. And it's really just taking out a small shallow depth trench, putting in that subgrade electrical connection back to the property, laying down the concrete to repair the sidewalk and installing the post. It's a 2-day operation. We do have documentation around some of the deployments we've done here in Brooklyn, and we're happy to share that with you. And I'll just also point out that we can work with any property that has that spare capacity and the parking space along their street frontage. It's not just 1 and 2 family homes. It's apartment buildings, it's commercial storefronts, it's churches, it's schools. In fact, we really kind of like the larger commercial properties that are oriented around the corner property lots because they could host multiple chargers. And at least initially, we think they'll have more of that spare capacity. As I mentioned before, we're about a 2-year-old company. Since then, we have deployed 7 chargers. The first charger was set up in Detroit. We did multiple public demonstrations with it last year. And now we have 6 chargers that have been up and running since March this year in 2 different locations. These are active chargers. We've got a cohort of about 15 drivers between the 2 locations using our chargers. And this pilot was done in partnership with the New York City Economic Development Corporation, who were the host properties for one of the locations. And also it was funded by Hyundai, the car company. So Hyundai is interested in getting charging access to more drivers in cities because they see an opportunity to sell cars to those drivers. So we have a lot of interest from the vehicle OEMs and from the cities themselves. I'm going to pause. I've been talking a lot. I'm sure there might be some questions. The next series of slides are kind of about the specific funding opportunities that we're pursuing right now through NYSERDA. But before I do that, I'd love to hear any questions or thoughts that you might have around our business model or our hardware.
Any questions? Sarah?
Yes. So have you done a study to find out how many can be included per block, say, in a city? I mean, thinking about how difficult it is for drivers to find parking places in cities, I could see some local people saying, well, now there's a parking space I can't use. So have you run into anything like that, or how do you see them deployed around a neighborhood?
So different sources have different sort of targets. You definitely shouldn't think of a city block with just every single parking spot having a charger. New York City imagines that in another 30 years, they want to see 1 charger for every 10 parked cars. That'll be about 100,000 chargers throughout just the city of New York. That may not be enough. That might be too many. But we're really, even in the early days, we're really only disrupting a couple of parking spots every quarter of a mile or so. The quarter of a mile is about how far most drivers are willing to walk to their home from where they park their car. And there's just really not enough, the EV adoption rates in the city right now are pretty low. There's still around 2 or 3%. That's about the same statewide. It's definitely creeping up, and it is on track to sort of start to form that sort of hockey stick growth where we're going to start to see hundreds of thousands of electric vehicles being added to the roadways every year or so, just in another couple of years. But at the moment, there's still not quite enough cars to really support more than just having a couple of these curbside chargers, like I said, every quarter of a mile or so. So that is important because as we put the charger in, we do utilization testing. We sort of see how frequently is the charger being used. And of course, if the utilization is low, it means that there's not enough chargers in the neighborhood, and we sort of wait until we see the utilization creep up. But in many neighborhoods in New York City, they're seeing plus 70% utilization. So a charger is in use 70% of the time. That's in neighborhoods you might not be surprised to hear, like Park Slope and Brooklyn Heights, where there's fairly higher relative EV adoption than other neighborhoods. So eventually, those neighborhoods will need more chargers. But initially, and even at its fully built out state, it's only going to be about 1 charger for every 10 parking spots.
And I have one more question. How do you determine when you're seeding properties, to go in and, attach to their electrical capacity, how do you solicit them? Do you have handouts? Do you sort of see if they're interested, and then you go in and test what capacity they might have available?
Yeah, great question. And right now, it is going to be a sort of manual process. We can do a little bit of it at a desktop level. We can sort of use Google Maps to look at the street frontage, make sure there's no bus lane or bike lane, make sure there's no fire hydrant or some other reason that you wouldn't be able to have a parking spot in front of the building. But knowing how much spare capacity is on the panel is something you've got to have an electrician go into the basement and take a look at. We think later, as our company grows and as the technology comes along, we'll have more access to smart meters, and that will help us sort of be more predictive. But in the next couple of years, it'll be a somewhat manual process. The way that we sort of source our properties, we look for opportunities to talk to property owners that have portfolios of buildings. So some of those commercial properties I mentioned before. So we can talk to a single host property owner that might own multiple properties in a particular area. But we do actually also have a wait list. And the wait list on our site right now, so far we've had about 650 host properties sign up. So just through earned media, we're not paying for advertising. This is just through articles and features on websites. We've had 650 people across the US sign up for our wait list. And so there is sort of a way that we can actually sort of pre-sort some of these properties as well before we have to go in and start, let's say, you shouldn't think of us sort of going around and knocking on doors and seeing if they want a charger. This is going to be a different outreach process.
Thank you. That's it.
All right. Any other questions?
Sure. Just a quick, I assume it's a proprietary plug, your plug into the pylon?
So yeah, I wanted to make that point that it's not proprietary.
Oh.
The plug that we are using is the exact same plug that's being used by all of the different public chargers in the EU and the UK. Okay. We're taking that model and bringing it over here.
Great.
One thing that will be different about the US, by the way, and one of the reasons that we're excited about the detachable cord is there's a little bit of a charging standard war going on between Tesla and some of the other vehicle manufacturers. So we can actually give people either a cord that plugs into a Tesla charge port or the other charging standard, which is the J1772. So we're a little bit future-proofed, right? If everybody says, well, let's go with the Tesla standard, we will be able to give drivers it's called the type 1 to Tesla or a type 1 to NACS connector. And everybody else, we'll still have both of these cars with these different charge ports, for the next, decade at least. So anyways, our detachable cord means we don't have to have multiple cords. We don't need to worry about people having adapters. We're a little bit future-proofed. And if the third charging standard comes along, we'll be able to sort of deal with that as well.
Any other questions?
Sonny, I'd be happy to act as a go-between if anybody has any questions after we leave here.
Okay.
If they want to submit them to me, and I will pass them along to Nathan.
All right, good. So Nathan, if you'll cut to the chase.
So we are pursuing a grant called the Mid-Hudson Momentum Fund. We are looking at an opportunity to deploy 250 chargers across the region. We don't think that there's one single city in the Mid-Hudson area that would be able to support enough money for the minimum grant for this. So we're really looking to put together a coalition of different cities and deploy these 250 chargers over the next 5 years or so. And we would love to have Kingston sort of anchor, we be one of our anchor cities. We can certainly work with you to understand how much need there is for public charging and where they should go. But the state of New York is looking really to spur this kind of sustainable infrastructure, and EV charging, public EV charging is definitely one of the priorities. We do have some early commitments coming in from NIAC and Haverstraw, so they've written letters of commitment for this grant. And we're looking to bring more. We're looking to bring more of these partners in as well. And we have a soft deadline around the very beginning of October. October 2nd is looking when when we want to submit the full application.
Have you gone over this with our mayor?
No, I don't think we have gone over this with the mayor yet.
Okay.
I'd love to.
I strongly suggest that you get in touch with the mayor, Steve Noble. We can talk about it amongst ourselves, and then, I think him and the various people in his administration are interested in environmentally sustainable practices. Would very much like to hear what you're saying. So
I think it should be clear that we've already been presented to the Climate Action Commission.
okay, but that's not the mayor.
Oh, no, I know.
Yeah.
Julie Noble.
So that's what I would suggest. Or, if he feels like, if you get in touch with him and he feels like he knows enough from the Climate Action Committee, he might have a connection with them. Then, of course, we could look at taking next steps. All right, does that make sense?
That would be great. And I think, for our application that we're looking to submit in October would be a letter of commitment. Obviously non-binding, right? Like this is just an application to NYSERDA for the funding. But certainly the state is going to be looking for those letters of commitment. There is a sort of a requirement for matching funds, which we will, right now, we're sort of exploring through either working with Central Hudson Utility, Con Ed, and also the New York Green Bank.
And we don't have time to do a letter of commitment before October 2nd, so.
Yeah, well, but the mayor might could, right?
Yeah, our body wouldn't have, because we go through a very specific process, we would not be able to get a letter of commitment by October 2nd. So your best bet would be reaching out directly to the mayor.
Okay.
But I think there's definitely interest here. It sounds like a great project. We like the strategy that you're following. And so we certainly wish you well, and maybe we'll be working with you in the near future.
I would like that very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Have a great night, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you for listening. I'm gonna scoot up now. Have a good meeting. Looks like you're having a lot of fun signing.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, that was great. It was really interesting to hear.
Yeah, sounds like a good project.
All right.
That's a concentrating money
This
for the city, right?
about matching.
Matching signs.
Yes, yeah, well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we're good at non-binding.
no, nothing's free.
I love your rose colored glasses. They won't last long here.
We didn't specifically say that, yes, the money had to come from the city, but of course we know that's where it would go, right? Yeah, okay.
All right. So several items, well, 4. So the first item is out of finance resolution of the Common Council of the City of New York authorizing transfer. This is in the Assessor's Department. The amount there is $2,452.27. But this is to balance accounts, so the actual financial impact will be 0. Any questions or concerns about that one? All right. Resolution 147 is authorizing the transfer of $23,100 in the Housing Department to cover the administrative fees of the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. Now, technically, this one has 0 financial impact because Bartek will be administering the fee that is approved by the state to each of the entities covered by the ETPA, and they will be paying for this amount. Right?
I just want to add that the state ETPA statute allows the city to do this. So we're not just going after. So that's what I heard complaints about.
This is right. This is envisioned in the ETPA. All right. Any questions on that? Clarity? Okay. Next one, resolution 148. This is authorizing the transfer of surplus properties to the Kingston City Land Bank. This is also through the housing department under Bartek. So this is a number of properties that we offered. We offered the land bank quite a number of properties. They chose the ones that looked like they would fit with their imprimatur. And so this is to transfer them to the land bank to get them back on the city rolls.
So I just want to tell everybody, I went to one of the dedications of one of the projects on German Street. Incredible. Yeah. They did such a nice job on a piece of property that was deplorable, on the verge of falling down, I would say. But it's really a showpiece now. It's great. Did a great job.
Good to hear.
I was on the board for the land bank until I resigned to take this job.
Yeah.
They saved a bunch of buildings so far.
Right.
And
Yeah.
sold them affordably. And the renovations are great. And the buildings that they rejected, or the properties that they rejected on this list that was offered, are ones that are not really useful for affordable housing. Or many were just vacant lots or little strips, or so they're not interested. They've done a great job, and this keeps them in business for another couple of years,
Yeah.
at least.
And what I really like and enjoy is looking, I mean, they use the original woodwork, the original flooring.
Yeah.
They didn't just come in and slap up some vinyl stuff. I mean, it's really nice.
They've done stuff, you're using designers that are on the board, some soon to be off. And they really pay attention to the history of the building, what it should look like. They're energy efficient, they're all electric, when possible, within reason. And, for example, not using solar because the cost just gets really crazy, and you can't make a building that's affordable housing, when it gets really crazy. But they're really nice buildings that they've done, and they'll last a long time. So it's a good thing to keep them in business.
All right. Anything else on that issue?
Do we know how many Kingston residents are getting these houses?
So far.
I know of one family because they live right down the street from me.
Yeah, and the ones, the Gurn's a Kingston resident, the one on Fox the one over in Hasbrook, was a Kingston
Yeah.
family.
Main Street.
Main Street was a Kingston family. They're pretty, at this point,
Main Street?
they're pretty, well, that's debatable, but you're right. Main Street's the one that's been, the only one that's has some doubt.
Okay.
But they're very careful about that, and the way they select the owners, the buyers, used to be more of a proposal kind of thing. Now they've gone to a lottery system because that's really what the lawyers are told they have to do. But they market the buildings to Kingston. The idea is to market the buildings locally so that the people that apply are local people. That's their intention, that's their hope.
That's what they told me to.
Yeah, they can't guarantee it, but they try really hard to get Kingston residents.
You can't legally.
Yeah.
You can't legally.
I'm sure that.
As I say, marketing locally. is
I
what they do.
think we can move on now. All right, resolution 149 is amending the city fee schedule for planning. This is from Sue Cahill, and it's due to the changes in the zoning code. And so what we're looking at are some changes. So for example, minor site plan. This is going to be a flat fee of $200. That's what's proposed. A minor waiver would be $50 each. And then what used to be called the site plan base fee becomes the major site plan base fee. And all subcategories remain with the addition of, again, minor waiver, $50, major waiver for residential units is $150, and a major waiver for commercial projects rather is $350 each. Pretty okay with that? What's queries, questions? Dilemmas, enthusiasms? Okay. In that case,
Get my update, or you want to do liaisons first?
yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that Julie Noble came to Laws and Rules last month when I chaired for Rita, and she gave a very in-depth presentation on the community preservation plan, which we did not pass. But I just wanted to ask anyone that wasn't there or hasn't seen the presentation to watch it on YouTube before either Laws and Rules or when the council.
And it won't be in
Yeah.
September, it'll be
Okay.
October, so it's a little extra crowd time.
Great. Thank you.
Anything else from committees? Andrew?
Well, I just want my update, two things, but they'll pretty quick. Thanks to everyone who responded about November. We have a quorum, so I'll officially call those meetings tonight or tomorrow. So mark your calendars for whatever I said, a Thursday for caucus and then Monday.
Second and the sixth, I think, because I looked it up.
June 6th.
Yeah, thank you. So just, mark your calendars, but I'll make it official. In terms of this room, I actually was able to utilize it, made copies. We now have a printer.
Yay.
What? Yep, we also have, we're going to have access.
I'm saying that. I was trying to say it quietly.
We're going
Are
to
you
have.
saying you got rid of that one?
No, I asked IT, I was like, they need a printer.
Yeah, so, but I also talked to
Uh-huh.
Kyle also about setting up our laptops so that we could also just say print to here. So we'll be able to do that. And then we also have a new conference call system for attorney-client and I know.
That's huge.
Oh, in that case, let's put it to attorney-client session again.
Just well, actually, we're gonna have to go into executive session on Wednesday, so I don't know, I wouldn't mind the practice, but, yeah, so we we're Dan Baker
Clarence, yeah.
for a settlement issue.
Executive session, not.
Exactly, so that's what I got.
Okay, no, I was just making sure because of.
Yeah, no, I said, yeah, executive session. So we will most likely use that, so I'll have to send numbers to everybody via email so that if you have to ever access one of our sessions remotely, you'll be able to do that, but that's gonna be so much nicer than random cell phones scattered around the table. And then I think I mentioned at the special meeting, but IT will be back. I confirmed we'll be back for all our council meetings, so they were there. The special meeting will be there tomorrow. And moving forward, so you don't have to see me crawling under tables and practically in tears anymore, hopefully. You probably know that we are expecting a new member in Ward 7. It hasn't been announced yet, so I'm not gonna publicly say it right now,
Do we have
but
a date?
the 13th.
Okay.
So I will send out committee
It's not Friday the
assignments.
13th.
Wednesday. So it's a little much, we'll probably still be -1 for finance.
Okay.
So this person doesn't have to go right into it.
Yeah.
I'll meet with them on Friday to go over things, but I'll get you all of that. I haven't figured out, I just need to send it out. Speaking of finance and audit, it's a pretty long agenda. Most of it is fairly easy, but because this is one of those awkward months where we go right from getting the agenda to discussing everything, and the CSEA MOA is on there, so just, you may want to take a look at that prior to, Wednesday to be best prepared. The parking task force, the applications are now closed. So as soon as I can, I'll send it out to you. The process that we did for the marijuana task force is I did, what's it called? Ranks voting. Yeah, so I'll do that, seemed to work last time. So we'll do that where council will pick 3, then I'll send those 3 names to Steve, he'll pick the next 3, and then we'll do another ranked voting. I just need a little time to get that done. And my last little thing, which I don't know, because Michelle suggested that we do a moment of silence tonight. I was gonna suggest that we do one for council tomorrow, but, all right, so I'll do one in dedication for, that's all I have.
I just had a question. When are we expecting the mayor to release the budget so we can get ready for
That's
budget
on my,
meetings?
that's also on my agenda.
Okay.
I've also asked about the rec guideline board 5 times.
But they released it today.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
yeah,
released
great.
it, yeah.
How did I miss that? Okay, that's on my list to
Okay.
find out, because we have to cram in all of those meetings, and I'm stressing out about them.
Just be ready to have meetings Monday through Thursday.
Well, that's why I was like, I don't have any options for moving council any later in November because, I mean, basically just plan on living here in November.
Glad we got a new carpet.
You can conference call your family, we're all good. Yeah, I'll work on it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else? Any other reports? Issues of great moment bubbling up?
Yeah, I don't know when the meetings are gonna be in November. I guess just so you know, I'm away the third week of November, I think it is.
Honestly, what I do, well, I will reach out to John Tui and I'll reach out to Rennie and double check the dates that they could be there, and then I just pick the dates because there's so few options.
Yeah, I know.
Because we need, once the mayor releases it, I'll just go through this briefly for community members. Yeah, once the mayor releases it, so he'll give his presentation here, then I call a public hearing, it needs 10 days notice. So we can't start our deliberations for 10 days. Then we have the public hearing, and at that time I will call all the meetings, but we would usually 7 meetings, where every department comes in. We'll squeeze in a bunch of city hall, I think we split city hall into 2 different nights, but every department has to come and we go through the budget one line at a time.
Well, some departments were also able to piggyback on the same evening, so.
Yeah, and I'll follow the same system, but I still believe it's about 7 meetings. And then like a wrap-up session. Actually, last time we did 2 wrap-ups and we canceled 1. So I'll do the same thing for that. But because of Veterans Day, Election Day, our regular meetings, Thanksgiving, and we need to have this so that it goes to the council at our December meeting. So we have
Feast of
until,
circumcision, so we probably don't want to do it on that night. It's November 1st.
well, we can't do it that
That'd
night.
be too early.
And
You never heard of that?
Never mind. Let's leave it up.
just go with it.
Ironically, it's on the same day as the Day of the Dead, but go figure.
So when the budget is presented, is it presented to the finance committee or just for all of us as a whole? Or how
The
is it
public.
done?
The public,
Oh, the public, and we're part of the public, yeah, right, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
present at City Hall and it's usually people
Oh, okay.
come and it's broadcast.
Oh, okay.
And then we get the official budget, and then, like I said, we have to do a public hearing in 10 days. So whenever he does it, which is usually around early 20s of October. So then yeah,
Really,
really,
that's why it's the month of November.
yeah,
Because, okay,
and we have to pass it for December, and I'll actually call a second council meeting in December, so a special council meeting. That way, in case he vetoes our budget, we could have another meeting to override, if that's what we so choose, before January 1.
okay. Because the budget.
Most of the time, I just cancel that meeting,
Okay.
but, so just so you know, and I'll have it all out. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you telling me conflicts, but I think there's.
No,
I could do.
I'm only one person, so. I just
You're not
wanted to-
finance, right?
I'm not, but you know,
Yeah, it's
for
good
the
for
last
us
couple
all.
of years,
Everybody's
most
like,
of the time, the members have been showing up to all of the.
I think it's so
meetings. Yeah.
important to
Yeah.
show up to these. It's, first of all, one of your few chances that you get to talk to department heads and about their departments. And this is a huge thing. This is the huge thing that we work on and vote on for the year. That having full representation or as
Yeah.
close to as possible for each of these meetings is really crucial to ask questions and.
And our new zoning plan is putting pressure on a number of departments that might require extra help or moving
Right.
things around. So all the more reason to be present.
Yeah, very important, but I'll get that as soon as I can. I'll work that out, but I'll reach out to you and John to make sure dates are good.
Oh, did I tell you I'm going to be gone in the month of November?
No, you won't. I will lock you to that chair.
starting tonight.
Yeah, just in case.
Wait, that's what I felt?
Is it April first?
No, it's always mid-October, usually in the early 20s.
And the budgets, the department heads have to get their budget to the mayor by the end of September, is that it, or what, I don't know.
I honestly don't know exactly. I know that they've been in for meetings, and I've talked to a few of them, but I don't, that's as much as I know. I know they start working on it in August with the mayor, but I'm sure they're working on their, some of the bigger departments too, working on it independently. Yes, so the departments go through it, then they work it through with John and the mayor. Mayor presents his vision and budget to us, and then we can make any changes that we want.
Okay,
We usually don't make big changes, but
And there's a capital plan too.
okay.
Yep. So
Great.
tedious process.
Barbara has a thoughts.
I just wanted to throw out, I think a lot of you already know about some impending deadlines that my office is working under. So if there are any budget related questions that you can already anticipate, it's going to take us longer to get back to everyone. So just leave more time. There is incredible stuff related to the budget. So it's okay.
Very good.
Okay.
Motion. Second.
Returned,
You know, it's everybody who's-
7:49.
Thanks, Elisa.
It's almost like we.